also, with the hospital part of it, do you find that some of this is mandated by regulators, where there's certain expectations about what you're going to be able to keep up? Like, I'm thinking, I work a lot with banks, so there, it's almost the regulators are mandating to you what versions of systems you're going to use. And it's like when you're getting examined, if you don't have the latest version, it's kind of you know, something that's brought up in your examination. You know, you say, you might argue.
Absolutely. But that's why when you look at these hybrid solutions, you need to, you really need to assess what your needs are, and you don't want to overbuy anytime. But sometimes you have to. You have to.
There's another audience, another stakeholder, like you guys are saying. You know.
So our solution is a hybrid one that includes some of the VoIP. Our emergency phones are still going to be over the copper in some cases, because at the end of the day, when everything else fails, I don't know about you, you pick up the phone, it works, right?
Right.
And that, you know, that we're not going to do away with those. There's going to be, that's part of the overall solution.
And that's a required expense. You know, you have to put in that you need like the last line of delivery to be something that's always been there for 50 years. It's gonna work. Yeah.
I just have a question, Tony. You have multiple T1s coming into the campus, probably delivered on a Verizon pole or tunnel of some sort. So let's take the situation, that tunnel goes down, so your T1's dead. You're able to switch through your carrier, your MPLS carrier, to Syracuse and pick up the phone calls? Is that
Well, under the VoIP scenario, since you're controlling it, as Ira mentioned, you're controlling it before it even gets to you. So you can make that switch before it even gets to that pole.
Right. So your service provider is switching it up to Syracuse.
Think software. Think
software. It's IP delivery over the T1. So even though you have the same T1, you're delivering it in a different method, so that the other provider, the hosted provider, is really getting that call first and passing it on in some way.
So it doesn't come down the tunnel to the Verizon tunnel to you.
It does if you want it to.
It could.
Yeah. But if that line is dead, it's switching out to someplace else.
This gives you that flexibility to switch.
And we have something later that actually kind of talks about the different levels of redundancy at your headquarters or wherever to allow for having multiple circuits in your organization to route different traffic different ways. But I'll run through the rest of this really quick. What I wanted to say about the feature richness of VoIP technologies is kind of the stuff I've already talked about in terms of the back-end solutions, where you're able to do all this call forwarding and reroute and divert calls before it actually hits your network. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one of the most important parts of multiple service offerings, is hosted, which is something that I'm the most familiar with out of all of that, because we provide primarily hosted voice services at our organization. And hosted voice, if you're not already familiar, is technically the removal of the call processing unit from your office. And instead of having that, you have your IP endpoints, your IP phones, your IP fax machines, your IP conference phones, whatever, in your office that are all connected up similarly as your computers are. They all they're an IP endpoint, just like a computer or a printer. And all of the call processing actually happens in my data centers or in the service provider's data centers. And those data centers are primary, secondary, redundant, or tertiary power backup. They have multiple internet feeds coming in, and they also have multiple PSTN feeds out to different carriers. So at that level, you have a lot of redundancy at the core of the network, which would be overly expensive for most companies to put in at their own premise. So in that way, this is kind of the most secure way of managing BCDR for the small medium size industry. One of the other benefits is the simplicity of having a mobile workforce or a distributed environment where you have an office in California, an office in Texas, an office, your headquarters over here. If any one of those goes down, it doesn't affect the other party or the other two organizations or three organizations. They run independently. At the same time, they're a fully meshed organization where they can 4-digit dial one another, they can conference each other, intercom each other, wherever they might be, so long as they have an internet connection. So that's kind of the hosted model, and there's a lot BC, the same type of functionality that we just discussed on the hybrid system, where you can divert calls before they get to your handset because you have no internet or you have no phones or no access to your facility. You can also do that in the hosted environment. What I wanted to say about feature richness in the VoIP space right now is about 5-10 years ago, a lot of the features that we talk about that are so prevalent in today's communication requirements, unified communications, that's voicemail to email, fax to email, stuff like that, as well as mobile soft phone clients where you have an IP phone on your iPad or your iPhone where you have your extension right there. You can always use that. All of those type of features, the 1,001 ways to forward a phone call, they used to be relegated to the enterprise only because it cost a lot of money to have a phone system that would do that. VoIP has kind of leveled that playing field. So if you're a 5-person office with a small budget, or you're a 1,000-person office, those services are available to everybody now. So it gives everybody the ability to have BCDR planning in place, whether you're a small company that, if you lose your phones because you do everything, that's a huge hurt to your business, or a big hit to your business. All the way up to the 1,000-person office. Additionally, and I've mentioned this throughout kind of the different types of offerings, the distributed workforce has been like the biggest driver in pushing out VoIP to the masses, let's say. And that's primarily because of BCDR. You have the ability now to have these easily set up remote workers or branch offices, or just another complete new headquarters. Scalability is all there. You don't need to worry about investing in new equipment at each location. Besides the handsets themselves, it's very easy to set that up, and that goes hand in hand with BCDR because let's say you do have a full outage in your office and you want people to just work from home that day or that week, or maybe the lights went out and you're going to work from home for the next 5 days. You just take your phones, put them at home, turn them on. Everybody's working, same way they used to work at the office.
You can use lists as a case study. We were actually using Press One's service at the time during Hurricane Sandy. Excuse me. And what we did is, we had power in our office. Everything was up. The only problem was that no one had gas to get back and forth to the office or the clients. So when people, the first few days that they had gas, they took their phones home with them. And everybody was able to work from home once we had power and cable at home. And that was our plan. And now actually what we did is we bought extra phones, so now everyone has one at home. In case of a blizzard or something like that, they work and they stayed up the whole time.
Right. Yeah.
But if you're working at home, you're working on an air card? Using an air card connection?
Or cable mode, BIOS.
Yeah. Any internet connection would work fine. I mean.
But most of the mobiles are using some kind of air card. You're going wireless of some sort. Most of them.
Well, I mean, if you let's say you had a phone at your house, you'd normally plug that into your router, your Wi-Fi router, and whatever internet service provider you're using, you would use that to exit to the internet. Not necessarily. What's that?
No, we're running short on time.
Oh, sorry.
So I don't know if you guys want to go through finish the presentation, or if you guys want to keep doing Q&A. I'll leave that guys up to you guys. But you guys
one observation, think of this phone as any other application. It's not a phone anymore. It's not a phone. It's no different than your billing system. It's no different from your financial system, your sales system. It's just another system that you use on your network. So all the things that you worry about with your billing system and your financial systems, the same considerations without an internet connection, without electric, so you need to secure that as well.
Sure, isn't the other option here a soft phone?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So on my iPad, I have a soft phone. I can turn it on, and I'm live anywhere. I can answer calls, take calls, make calls, transfer, conference, all that stuff right from my iPad.
let's run through the presentation quickly, and then we'll just say the last
No
few
problem.
questions.
So I think you want to just
Yeah.
nobody needs to look at the diagram. I mean, it's a diagram, and you can ask
We can
questions.
give you guys copies of the presentation if you
Yeah.
want.
Give your cards and
so-
in the back over there after you'll get your copy of the presentation.
And Thomas kind of alluded to this earlier in what he was saying about knowing your service provider. That's the biggest thing that people neglect, especially in the VoIP service market. You have all of your redundancies in place at your office, but you don't know what your service provider is doing over here. They could have zero BCDR planning, or they could have something that is just baloney, right? There's two questions that I always tell customers to ask about their service provider, or I give the answers to. One, is your service, are your servers geo-redundant or geographically redundant? Meaning, if your primary call processing server is in New York City, and New York City has a hurricane, what happens when your data center is underwater? Well, for the most part, people will say, I have a data center in X country. I have a data center in Denver, Tampa, or Texas. So all of that, all of the redundancies, or all of the call processing then automatically shifts to the new call processing center. So that's number one, really important component of a service provider's infrastructure. The next is what kind of providers are you using to terminate calls, and what kind of ISPs are you using? You want to make sure that they're using tier 1 carriers, level 3, Verizon, XO, Verizon, AT&T. Those are the type of providers that you want to see both on the voice side and the internet side. If you get a quote from somebody and you ask these questions and they say, we use a mix of tier 1 and tier 2 providers, make sure you know like which ones your phone numbers are going to be on. Not like we have a mix. You want to make sure. It's your dime. They should tell you. If they don't, then don't use them because you're just not sure. I had a couple real world scenarios to run through if you'd like me to.
Instead of more on the virtualization.
Yeah, let's move on to the
Yeah.
other topics, I guess. And then
That's fine. That's fine. I mean, we kind of talked about them anyway. Cool.
So,
Oh, right. Well, we've already talked about most of this stuff.